Welcome to this special episode of The Building Code. I'm Zach Witovich.
And I'm Charlie Burtwhistle.
It's special because we're talking about the International Builder Show today. We're really excited to have some wonderful guests who are going to be at IBS. We'll get there in a second. Before we get started, I just want to do a major shout out for Charley Burtwhistle and his recent promotion to Director of Data Science. Geez. Really exciting. This man is an absolute genius and a stud, and he hosts a podcast for Buildertrend.
Thank you.
A man of multi-talents, but well-deserved.
Thank you. If I had a business card, it would not say Director of Data Science. It would say podcast co-host. This is the
true
title
passion.
I'm most proud of. But I really appreciate that, Zach, and super excited to be here today with the International Builder Show coming up. Obviously, the largest convention in the world for builders to attend. International Builder Show, absolutely. And the two guests that we have on here today are not only going to be at IBS, but they are going to be on a panel with our CEO, Dan Houghton, talking about the challenges of becoming a modern builder and what they've faced and how they've overcome it. And I know we'll get into that a little bit more during the episode, so I don't want to give it all away. But they will be there. Let's shout out the times real quick. What are they, Zach?
It is on February 8th from 1:45 to 2:45. The topic is the modern builder. Our guests on the podcast today are going to be presenting with Dan Houghton talking about that topic. Kath of Jkath Design and Build out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and Joe Christensen of Cardinal Crest Homes out of Kansas City, Missouri. Two Midwestern friends close to Omaha. So
yeah, absolutely.
We've got a chance to meet them. They're really fantastic. And it's also worth mentioning, if you're at IBS, we do have daily happy hours in the Buildertrend booth. Check us out from 2 to 5. I'm going to be down there at the International Builder Show. Unfortunately, Charlie isn't going to be able to make it on this one. That's what happens when you're a director. You start to.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, you start to get into these positions.
Yeah,
you gotta let the other people do the work.
Right. I guess. Except we do have VPs and directors and our CEO going, so I don't think it's too important to go.
True.
Although I appreciate the sentiment. And you said what time are daily happy hours?
2 to 5.
So go to the panel, Modern Builder. That ends. Pop right over to the Buildertrend booth. Will we have the RV there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so find the giant blue Buildertrend RV.
Oh, yeah.
Grab a beer, talk with Zach, ask him how I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
maybe actually talk to Katie and Joe and the real professionals,
right.
But I'll be there too.
Well, I'm super excited. This will be my little taste of International Builder Show, talking to these guys today. So let's go ahead and get them in here.
All right. Welcome back, Katie and Joe, to the Building Code. Katie, I don't think you were on the Building Code before. This is your first time, right? So maybe I shouldn't say welcome back. But Jesse was on the Building Code a few episodes back in the fall. And Joe, you hosted the Building Code. Or like you said, maybe you won't claim it as hosting, but I think you did a great job.
Absolutely.
And we're excited to have you guys
it's
here.
like the living room couch.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. It's an experience. Charlie and I have been doing it now for, almost
a little bit,
a year.
Yeah.
And it still feels like we're kind of, finding our groove. And it's just one of those things that, you really have to keep going at it. What we wanted to talk about today with you guys, though, is the International Builder Show coming up.
Heck yeah.
And Charlie's super psyched about it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I'm the only person on this call that will not be at the International Builder Show. So I'll be living vicariously through you guys.
And yeah, I know. Yeah, we've been trying to swing it, but he doesn't have quite enough pull just yet. Well, let's start with, tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and your first attendance at IBS. And Katie, I'll start with you. What's your perspective on the International Builder Show?
Sure. So I joined. So Jesse started the company as a custom cabinetry shop only over a decade ago, and I was not around for those early years. So he and I are 2015, I guess, and on is when we got married. But we were together a little bit before then. So around that time, I had sold a business. We came together. We decided I would help with some business development with his company. Instagram, social media was new. There was just kind of this eye candy or opportunity to say, hey, what if we took what's really beautiful and just try putting it out there? Back then it felt like, what would we do with TikTok right now? What would happen if we put something on TikTok? So it felt the same way. What would happen if we just start teasing these images out into Instagram? And quickly it was working, but it became very clear that we needed to get more serious about the design side of what we were doing. The craftsmanship and the quality was there, but I just think aesthetically we didn't really have an aesthetic figured out. So I just took that challenge on, and I'm not formally trained in design, but I know enough about a business and kind of the project management side I often say I project manage from my computer while our field guys project manage from the field. So really just helping coordinating, we need X amount of takes of tile, square feet, talking to the client about what that means, where we need to go find it, what might work with the existing program or colors or choices we've made. And then now we have a full scale design team in addition to our build side, but it's always been in the name of the business, but I think we weren't living up to it at all. So it feels like we really live up to it. But based on that, I am really more on the KBIS side when I go. So I'm more interested, I shouldn't say more, but I'm really curious to see new releases, product launches, connect with brands. And I've only been one time, you guys, probably the last one that we ever had was the only time I've been. Jesse has been many more times than I have, but every opportunity we've had to go in the past, can I just be really honest and just say it didn't sound like a fun time to me. And if I was going to get on a plane and go somewhere, I'm not going to go to a convention hall and walk around and look at booths. But mind was blown, and my opinion was definitely changed when I went for the first time a couple of years ago. So now it feels like it's just a part of our business plan. Maybe Jesse and I won't always go, but we're bringing a few people from our team with us this year. So I think we might change up who goes each year, but definitely our company will have a representation when we can.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Katie. IBS doesn't sound that awesome at all. So yeah, I'm truly glad I'm not going. I appreciate the background. I love what you said there, about like not being formally trained and you just kind of like diving in and figuring it out. I feel like that's a super common theme that we have here on the podcast of, that's the new wave in construction, in the world, really. There's lots of new stuff popping up all the time that you can take advantage of. And a lot of times people will push against it because it's not the status quo. But if you're not constantly involving and learning these new tools that you're not, formally trained in, you'll never really be able to keep up. So, that's awesome background. And obviously it's working very, very well for you and your company.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Joe, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your company and your IBS experience.
Well, I will start. This will kind of give a good segue of the beginnings of Cardinal Crest. 11 years ago, when I was a super senior in college, I was probably a super senior. I was 28, so you could do the math from there. I was part of the student competition for the NAHB, and the student competition for colleges. What they do is they have like 60 teams compete, and you are given a problem, and the problem is like you build a company on paper. The year I did it was in North Carolina, and you were going to do a on your lot builder to create this company, do a feasibility study, market study, put together financials, pretty much create this whole company on paper. Well, back in 2010, the market was pretty crappy. If you're in the market, remember it was desolate. And during this time, back up. This student competition for the NAHB, the actual competition, like the culmination, that's not the right, I didn't pronounce that right, but the competition happens at IBS. So that's like you turn in your books, the judges review them, and you can still go to this. I go to this every year for my college. I went to BYU. I go every year and support the students. I like to see the competition every year because I poured my heart, blood, sweat, and tears through this thing. So we competed that year. We actually got third at a bunch of schools, which was not what we wanted, but still good. Yes, thank you. Still good.
Yeah.
There were only 3 entries, but no.
Yeah. So what's interesting is during that time when I was preparing and building this team, and then we built this company on paper, was when there was no jobs at this time. Nobody was offering me a job out of college. And during that time is when I decided with my business partner that we're going to start a company. And it was right out of college. I actually took Cardinal Crest is the name of the company I created on paper. And I took that name and logo and started a company from it.
Yeah, might as well.
So it's pretty crazy. IBS reminds me every time of like the really humble, slim times of Cardinal Crest. We started in 2010 with no work. We self-performed a lot of things. We worked to build one model home, scrapping together as much as money as we could through loan sharks and family and friends, sometimes mixing those two. And from there, the rest is history. We slowly grew into a custom home builder that does about 18, 20 homes a year of very high-end custom homes. So I've gone, and then so backtrack, IBS, that's when I was a student, was the first time I went there, a super senior. And then I didn't go back for a while because I was too poor. I was just grinding. I was poor. We were the first couple of years through 2010, 11, 12, we didn't make any money. And so going to IBS seemed like such a luxury. And then one year we scraped again enough money and said, it would be a good idea to go. And so that was like maybe 13 or 14 we went. And it was so awesome because I felt like for us, I kind of researched the speakers, and there was a couple business building consultants that were doing some seminars that charge a lot of money typically for consulting. And like the classes were awesome. It was at that time is what we needed because we were kind of in our own little echo chamber in our business. And he hit us with a gut punch of like, this is what you should be charging. You're not charging enough this. It was a really good kind of hoorah lecture. I went and talked to him after. He gave us a bunch of advice, and it was, from there, we're like, every year we're coming back. This thing's awesome. And slowly it's become more and more of a tradition. We go there, we see some of the speakers, we go to some events. We've got to know a lot of builders around the country. We're in a Builder 20 group, and a lot of those guys are there. That now it's a big party, and I'm sorry you're not going to be there. But no, it's a really good event, and I love the business side of it. I love just meeting with builders around the country. I love seeing the new products. I love rubbing shoulders with the vendors and seeing what's new and the design side of what's. I think it's an opportunity to just get outside of your world and say what's happening around the country and be inspired.
Katie, something that you said stuck out to me, which was kind of like, I didn't think it sounded like a good time. And so I'm curious, when you actually went and got to experience it, Joe just talked about the relationships and the business advice. Is that part of what changed your perspective to an extent as well? Like, did you have the same kind of networking opportunities and things, or is there something else that, kind of helped you, not convert, but, see that it is a time investment worth, and, anybody listening, I'm like, sounds like everybody in construction needs to go.
Yeah. I felt like we definitely didn't give ourselves enough time. I built my own little itinerary and ran around and did a few things, but it's just, along the way you stop and it's eye candy over here and eye candy over there. And there's just so much information to take in. And then you feel like, I just wish I had, I could give myself 2 or 3 more days. And we might've only been there for probably 3, maybe it was only 2 nights, could have been 3. I don't remember. But definitely the content is great. The connections, met a lot of new people, but a few people that we're still in touch with. And I think even just, Joe kind of nailed it with feeling like you're in an echo chamber, feeling like you're a part of this really, really big, giant community of people across the United States and beyond. And that you're really not alone, and we're not perfect, and we're not going to be. And we had breakfast with Brad from AFT Construction, actually, not too long ago. And it was just like the best breath of fresh air to listen to him say, just be really honest about some of the areas where they're struggling and having challenges. And you look on Instagram and other places and like, but really, you're having the same challenges that we are here in Minneapolis. And, really at the end of the day, we probably have more challenges just based on the weather we're fighting right now. But yeah, so I think it's just the community piece, right? It's so hard to get that through a screen or monitor, or even a podcast can be challenging to convey community. So to be able to get in real life with people and just feel the buzz and the energy and the positivity and the culture, it's great.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. And you were talking about, I'm going to try to not keep harping on how sad I'm trying to put on a brave face for this.
We're going to send this to the events team, Charlie. And actually they're listening right now. And they're like, wow, we really burned this dude. He is upset.
I'm starting a GoFundMe right now.
Let's get it going.
Gosh, I almost made it through that sentence until he started laughing when I said.
Not very professional.
Sounds incredible.
Serious podcast mode. Let's go.
Yeah, sounds incredible. But no, Katie, when you're talking about your first time there and kind of being overwhelmed with all the opportunities and having your itinerary, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this that are getting ready for IBS, this may be their first time. So what would be like some advice that you guys would have on things that you want to make sure you hit this and you want to make sure to have time here? Are there any kind of tips or tricks that you guys would like to pass along?
I would just say real quickly, not to bring everything back to Instagram, but for me, I just went to some brands that I was really serious about, brands that we've worked very consistently with, where I could at least approach them and say, I had some information, right? I could name off some of their designs or product or material. I could sound like I knew what I was talking about. And similar with, Jesse on the build side. So finding those tried and true brands, seek them out. You might not need to know all the latest and greatest because you follow them so much. So that was kind of track A for me. Track B was, who do I want to work with? Or what products am I in particular interested in? Or maybe we'll get into this later, but I'm sort of a big brand person, and what brand means to me is a little bit different than what it might mean to others, but it's a little bit about how we make business decisions on our end, is how are we presenting ourselves as a brand to our community, not just a design build firm, because there's a lot of us out there. So for me, it was just about the aesthetic of brands and who I want to connect with, and then finding them before I get out there. So do I follow them on Instagram, sign up for their newsletters? Signing up for brand newsletters is so important, because even now in the last several months, I know what our brands that I want to go see, I know what they're doing. I know what happy hour they're hosting. I know what booth to find them in. Any special speakers or keynotes or anything that might be happening at their booth I know all of that ahead of time. I don't necessarily have to go filter through a different website to go find it. So those are probably the two things that I did then, and are kind of on my list to do between now and when the show starts.
For sure. What about you, Joe?
And she said it perfectly. I don't know if I could add much to that. That was great. Yeah,
sounds like you need to work on your list. You're like, I should do that.
Jeez, I know. No, I think you have to have a plan. It's too overwhelming if you don't. And so I think it's good to have a plan, research, like she said, of different brands that you like, and then the speakers as well. I really do enjoy some of them. I don't go to all of them, but there are multiple speaking arrangements from people that you would have to pay a lot of money if you research them. Some of these guys are nationally known, and a lot of people that kind of flies under the radar. Some of these guys are very expensive consulting business coaches and what. And so I kind of like going to those. I hit up 2 or 3 of those, and then I keep a lot of flex time in there to kind of just mingle and check out the suppliers that I use often and whatnot. But have a plan, and then then reach out. I would say reach out to your builders who you do follow or like, and reach out and see what they're doing. I would say, just echoing the culture of IBS, is a lot what Katie was saying. It's a time for all of us to kind of be a little bit more vulnerable about what we do, and we're all builders or remodelers or in the industry, if you will, supply, whatever it might be. We're tech industry, and so it's a time to talk freely and to kind of just bounce ideas back and be vulnerable about the pains and ups and downs, especially this year. Holy cow. What a year.
I love it. I mean, it's interesting hearing you guys talking about the thirst for kind of that community and knowledge. And I've heard that a lot on the podcast and in my time when I was a consultant for Buildertrend. We hear that a lot at Buildertrend University, where builders are like, I'm looking for, someone who's dealt with this or, seen this. So it's great to hear IBS also kind of fills that void that builders kind of express pretty often. Speaking of visiting your favorite vendors, Buildertrend technically is a vendor for our listeners out there. So make sure you come check us out at the IBS. I'll be there meeting our customers. And the segueing to, you guys are going to be on a panel for us with our CEO, Dan Houghton, which is really exciting. The Modern Builder panel on February 8th. It's the first session that we're hosting, 1:45 Eastern time. It's an hour. We kind of wanted to kind of see, what are you guys going to be talking about? Give a little sneak peek. Don't give too much away, but we're really excited to have you both there in person talking about it. And, what are kind of the things that, the theme is modern building. What are the first initial thoughts that you're kind of thinking about with that topic?
I think I hope to bring a different perspective because I'm not a builder.
Yeah.
My company does building. You guys really, I mean, you don't want me you don't want me putting together numbers on what it's going to cost we do, remodeling is definitely our game. We do a lot of high end and very custom remodeling, a lot of large 2-story additions. We're not just a bath or really even just a kitchen remodeling team anymore. But in terms of, but I understand the culture of our business. I understand what we're doing. I'm very much lead both, but I used to be in the hospitality industry. So we have a front and the back of the house. And we're the back of the house, and then all of our field crew, and then Jesse, they're the front of the house. So I spend more and more and more of my time just creating a synergy between the front and back of the house. And have sort of realized I don't even understand how some companies who don't really have, I don't even know how we'd be able to do it without creating that synergy. There's so much of a potential disconnect if our field crew doesn't have if our front of the house doesn't have what the back of the house has, and vice versa. We just need to be in constant communication. But really, in terms of what is a modern day builder, for me, it goes back to our brand. So for me in a modern day and our clients, I feel like I am my client. 9 out of 10 clients are me in the sense of sort of demographic where we are in our life. We have kids. We like to cook. We want an open floor plan like what you see behind me. We need a mudroom if you're in Minnesota. That's back in that corner. I mean, we all sort of need the same things. And so if we all need the same things, we're all probably drinking the same coffee. We all might have a Peloton in the basement. We might have our favorite pair of Nikes in the back. So we're kind of all behaving very similarly. And so when they are looking for a company, renovation and building, I mean, it seems like it's a really sexy thing to do. I mean, there's no shortage of it. Everybody wants it. Our inbox is probably much like Joe's. I mean, it's insane how many people have the ability and the want to take on these major projects, which is such a huge disruption in life. But no different than when you go to get a cup of coffee, they want the same thing from their build team. They want convenience, they want communication, they want a brand, period. So how are we creating a brand is where I'm headed.
Love that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Interesting. Joe, what about you? What are your thoughts on this topic? I'm sure you'll get more. Dan Houghton will, pull even more out of you guys. I'm sure. So.
Well, I'll just give a little teaser.
Yeah. We gotta save the material.
I don't give everything away. Yeah. Otherwise, they won't come. They'll be like, "Why did you already got that panel?"
Just.
So I think along the line, same with Katie's. I think this whole last year I think disruption has been a big part of our lives, right? Everything's flipped on its head. And I was just talking about this morning, how like as a builder, historical context has no context, which is so wild because that's how we run our business is by past experience. But when now past experience doesn't hold water, it's really weird. I think as a modern day builder, you have to be willing to disrupt things. And I say that because we started this business by saying, hey, the guys we worked for, what did we like and what did we didn't like? And they were true artisans, they were craftsmen, they were so knowledgeable, but the guys we had worked for, my business owner and I, they were rough and tough contractors who in the end, the clients respected, but didn't want to invite them over to dinner. They were scared to ask questions. They were, the people that worked for these guys were scared to learn from them or be, again, I use that word vulnerable because I feel like a disruptive word in our business. And it's even worse. We do commercial contracting as well. It's still so prevalent there. I mean, it is a rough and tough business. And if you don't have thick skin, it can be tough. And I think it's a problem. And I think that's the disruption that you have to have is that as a modern builder, you cannot be that way anymore. You have to, customer service is at the forefront of your brand or your company. And that's hard right now because to tell you the truth, I don't know if you guys have noticed, customer service is probably at the all-time low. Everybody is tired. Everybody's fed up. I mean, I feel like I go to a store and I could see to that person's eyes, I might ask a question that might be tricky and I could see how like just exhausted they are and they're short with me. And I think to myself, I know, I feel the same way. And I often feel like I'm the kind of the cheerleader in our company. Like, hey, I know you have reason to be frustrated. Like, as superintendent, you have reason to be. What that owner is saying is wrong. They don't have grounds to be that way. How do we flip this on its head? How do we climb that mountain of customer services so that in the end of the day, because what I always think is like, it's our jobs in this industry to be the professionals. It's our job to steady the waters, because people don't know, like, it's a messy process. I mean, talk about an industry. I'm building $2 million home. I'll build whatever $1 million home, and I'll find pee bottles stuck in the stud walls after the roofer got done. I mean, where else does that exist? I don't know if anyone else seen that, but there's bottles full of pee and they look yellow. And I mean, at one time, I was doing a walkthrough 6 years ago, and I had a child pick one up, and I about lost my. The owners didn't even know what it was, and I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, sorry to digress, but like, so it's a messy business, and I think the modern day builder has the mountain that we have to climb is how do we make it a customer service oriented business, not get railroaded by the clients. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, how do we calm the waters, be processed, systemized, so it can be a fun experience. At the end, guess what? I tell people this all the time. This is like my first, I tell people, I'm saying, buckle up. We're going to have conflict resolution throughout this whole thing. But guess what? I'm a fun person to deal with, even through the crap. And so we're going to have difficult conversations, and we'll be easygoing as we have those. It's just part of it. And that is not what you can have two ways. This is the last thing I'll say. I feel like I'm getting long-winded. You can be the scary contractor, and that works. The scary contractor, the rough and tough guy, scares the owner to say, I don't want to have that conflict resolution. Let's just pay it. Let's just deal with it. It's fine. He's so mean and mad, and I just don't want. And it's a business model. It does work, and there's still guys who do it. Or you can be the other way and say, hey, what's the problem? Okay, here's our standards. Here's our process through it. How do we work through this? And I'm not, again, it's not weakness. It's not saying we give away the barn, but no, we make money, we stick our ground, but there's a finesse to it, a customer service way of doing things.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful sentiment and a beautiful way to run a business. I keep thinking about what Katie said about brand and how everyone has a brand and companies have brands. And I don't think you want your brand to be the big scary contractor. I mean, I thought it was interesting. Both of you guys touched on being really, really customer centric and customer first. And I know that's something that we preach all the time at Buildertrend as well too. And if you can get that to be your brand and what you're known as, obviously that's going to drive a lot more business. It's going to make everybody's life easier. You're not going to see that disappointed, exhausted look on as many people's faces. Right. So yeah, I love that. And I'm really, really excited for you guys to be able to get up there with Dan and talk through this. With a large crowd, I feel like people that go to that show will learn a lot. I was surprised when I asked you guys what people should do to prepare for IBS. Either one of you guys said come to our panel, but that sounds like the number one thing that they should do, right?
Right.
Of course, I was given. Come on.
Yeah, and we will definitely have notes in the show notes for the time and date. So anybody listening to this will have the opportunity to come see you guys live, which is awesome, and learn a ton and become an even better builder.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about out of time today here on the Building Code. We appreciate both of you coming on and talking a little bit about your business, what you do, how you do things, and what we're going to kind of touch on at IBS. We'll see you both down there. Safe travels down to Florida. And thanks for coming on once again.
We'll be there. Thanks for having us.
Having me. God, sorry. Weird. See ya.
Bye, guys.
We just had Jkath and Joe Christensen on for their pre-IBS interview. Charley, what are your main takeaways?
Well, I'm personally super excited about their panel, and I'm not just saying that because we're promoting it and Dan Houghton's going to be there, but I was kind of taken aback by how similar their answers were and how similar it is to the stuff that we think about all the time with being a customer-first organization, taking on new things. Like, how many jobs have you had? Every job you've had at Buildertrend has been you weren't trained for, right? Like, you've kind of just figured it out as you go. And I was definitely the same way in data science, and these guys are saying the same thing about the construction industry. So modern builder, taking on new challenges. How do you figure it out? How do you grow? How do you adapt? That's just going to be an awesome panel, and I'm glad I got a chance to meet those two since I won't in Orlando.
It's going to be in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by Charley being sad that he's not at IBS.
I really didn't want to talk about it this much. So, what do you think, Zach? What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I always love getting into the weeds with. It's funny because on this interview, it was kind of, I didn't expect to get to where we got about the connections and the relationships and all those themes that we've had on the Building Co. a lot. Just shows how special this industry is and the people that work in it. They do incredible work. They have incredible perspective. I love learning from them, listening to them. And I know that panel on February 8th down at IBS is going to be incredible. Talk about some amazing just business people perspective on branding and the things that, when you go into the business are kind of crucial for our modern consumer to an extent too. Like their expectations, what Katie said about the convenience, right? And like the same expectations at Starbucks is kind of brought to the home building process. And I had never thought about it like that before. And it really kind of made me think.
What we moved past pretty quickly by was the fact that Joe presented IBS as like college project and then used it as a business plan.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just realizing that now. We took that at face value. We're like, oh yeah, as one does.
Yeah, in 2010, like during the downturn, like I'm going to go start a business. So like
that's crazy.
Amazing story.
In full circle, now he's on the panel there. So
yeah. We mentioned this in the opener, just to close it out, that we're also going to have a mini-sode called Inside Buildertrend. This is going to be a regular occurrence in between our longer format episodes. So check it out. It's airing when IBS is happening down in Orlando. Thank you so much for joining us on The Building Code. I'm Zach Petovich.
I'm Charley Burtwhistle. Make sure you like, review, subscribe.
As always, thanks for joining us.
Later.